Welcome to episode 98 of Broad Street Hustle. I'm your host, Tommy Nanny, bringing you what appears to be a quick show tonight. Just a quick hitter, not tons of content still in the world of sports. Yes, the tournament is going on, but it has lost some of its luster over the years. We don't follow it too much here on the program, so I think Chalky has a Final Four at the end. And we do have a special treat at the end with a video from one of our hosts, Meeker, who will have 20 minutes or so on the tournament. So stay tuned if you want. At the end, we are going to just briefly talk about the players last week, which we had a big show on. It was a fun tournament. Then we're going to do the late pick four at Fairgrounds, New Orleans, which is Louisiana Derby Day. Let's get right to it. I got Jason Sayetta.
Hey, Tom.
Jason, how you doing? I got Jimmy the Chalk.
Congratulations to our newest listener, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter. It's got a bit of ground to make out there.
All right, so the players. It was entertaining as heck. I'll tell you that much. I just newly discovered that I have ESPN Plus with I guess my Disney Plus and Hulu packet. So I put it on at 8:00 in the morning and I shut it off at 6:30 at night. So I got a solid 10 hours of golfing. I was watching the worst guys play 18 holes. So it was fun. And Scotty Scheffler came back with a 64 in the fourth round to overtake it as the plus 550 favorite. Myself and Jason both gave Scheffler as the pick. Jason even gave you a little bit of a odds booster. I think it was DraftKings had the enhanced odds. It was like 8.5 to 1 or so. So, relatively speaking, it's still a good play. Back to back. So I know Chalky was anti the back to back, but he got it done. Jason's going to go over our draft, but I'll kick it over to Jason just to kind of recap some of your picks and some of your thoughts on the players and whatever else.
Yeah, Scheffler. And he had a bad neck, right? He probably blows.
Yeah, it looked like the second round he was struggling, but by the third round it seemed like he kind of got through, and then it didn't seem to bother him in the fourth.
No, I think he was good by the fourth round, but like you said, it affected him at least through the second round.
Yeah, so. I think he even mentioned about he was like pretty damn near close to withdrawing at one point in the second round.
Wow. He's just ridiculous, and he wasn't even putting that great. On last weekend, he was putting better than he had been.
But not like he did
not like he did the week before.
No, but the fourth round, he was just putting the ball so close. He didn't have to putt it. It was unbelievable.
He's ridiculous.
His drives were incredible.
And I won, because I had Scheffler, but I also had a bet on Clark. So after the first round, when it was a 3-way tie, I said I'm putting money on Clark to win because I think he's one of the he's got a killer mentality. Although he kind of played a little, I think, scared on at least on Sunday at a few points, but I still like him a lot. So I don't know if I would have won more if Clark won or not, but I like Clark. What I did do is I went and I bet him for the Masters. I bet him for the U.S. Open, and I bet him for the PGA. The British Open, I don't, who knows? I don't like betting those courses until it gets close, and I kind of get a better feel for where they're playing and stuff like that. It's links golf and stuff. So, but I think he's live. I think Clark's live for all of these majors going forward because he just seems to be a money player. Schauffele, on the other hand, is not a money player. Like he's a top 5, top 10 guy, but he said
one of the things we're looking forward to is Xander having the lead going into the final round and finishing
you
third
said
or
it.
fourth.
You did.
Yeah, one thing I noticed with Xander too, it some of it is club selection. There was at least 3 or 4 times where the announcers now said, "Yeah, he's using a wedge on here. He's really going to have to hit this wedge to get to where he wants." And then he comes up short, and it's like, well, it seems like you used the wrong club. It's not even like bad shots.
Yeah,
that's what's a little peculiar with him.
So as far as bets go, we did do a make the cut bet, and I know we didn't have the fourth leg of that. during the podcast, but the fourth leg we ended up being Minwoo Lee. So we had Minwoo Lee, we had Hoagie, we had Corey Connors, and we had Harris English. So the only sweat was Minwoo Lee, and it was a crazy sweat, right? If he doesn't hit that 60-foot putt, we don't win. But we did. So we got over 4-1 on that. So it was pretty good odds. So
Yeah, we calculated it around that because we were ballpark.
No, it was a lot lower because I had used the Gala.
Oh, is that what?
And then I had also used DraftKings. But when I put the bet in, I used FanDuel, which had way better odds.
Wow,
so that's why we got those odds. As far as my bets go, Hoagie kind of fell off.
Yeah, he came out great.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him, but I did have Gim as a long shot, and he finished top 20. So I mean, all in all, I'll let you guys finish your thoughts before I give our results of our draft. But it was a fun tournament. I definitely profited, so it always makes it more fun.
Yeah. I mean, quick. I gave out 4 winners, which was Scheffler to win it, and then the 3 others were Zalatoris, terrible, JT, terrible, and then Clark. So he finished second. And then I gave out 3 long shots. Mitchell made the cut, but then I think finished last of the guys who made the cut.
He did finish last, yeah.
Somebody else who didn't make the cut, can't think of his name, and English, who finished top 15, I think.
Henley? Were you on Henley?
Yeah, you had Henley. We both had Henley.
Henley. Yeah, but I don't think.
Yeah, I had Henley top 20.
Yeah, he didn't make.
I didn't have him to win. I had him top 20, Henley.
But yeah. So it was all in all. I mean, you can't really argue with the. I mean, you picked the winner. It might have been the favorite, but you picked the winner. Chalky.
Yeah, I mean, look, I specifically didn't pick Scheffler because it never been a repeat. So hey, mushed him into the first place. And, Hovland made the cut, but was -1, so he was well out of it. And I also, like Zalatoris, didn't make the cut. And Hoagie was hanging in there for, the first 2 rounds and then fell apart. My 2 long shots to hit the top 20 did not make the cut, but I had 3 top 10 finishers with Scheffler, Matsuyama, and Xander. I didn't like Xander to win. I took him in the draft, but I thought, top 10 would be a fairly easy finish for him. So nothing too outstanding or crazy, but Scheffler to make to top 10 at -140 was the biggest bet I put in. So that obviously paid out okay.
Yeah, Jason, you want to just go through the draft real quick?
Yeah, I will. One question I have, and I don't know if we figured out what the ruling would be on this, and we end up sort of coming into play, not for the winner, but so Tommy had 2 guys who missed the cut. So I think Chalky was saying we should use the worst score of either guys who didn't make the cut or guys that did make the cut, and I think Tommy was saying we should just use the.
My whole point is there's 36 less holes that the guy who missed the cut's gonna. So you're gonna just prorate his holes.
Well, you're not going to prorate it. You're just
going
to take the score.
Yeah, but I know. But you're going to just say he finished 4 over. I know.
You just take the worst of the scores.
Yeah. So I wasn't saying the worst score. It was just that it was that individual that doesn't make the cut. One of those guys.
It's a cumulative score. It's points. It's after 72 holes they had whatever 220. Well, This guy's only playing 36 holes, so he's going to be at 120. Or whatever. So you're just looking at 4 over, whatever the over par.
4 over versus.
Yeah, the relative to par, not the total scores is.
I have no idea
it's tough.
Anything. I just think that's.
It would have been. Well, go ahead, Jason. You got it.
Well, I have it. So basically, you almost won if we used.
Yeah, my guys did good, except the guys that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, you finished 1 behind me, but you did beat Chalky. So Chalky finished last. But if we would have used the worst score of anybody who golfed last weekend, you would have finished last.
The worst score of any? No, it was the worst.
No, my suggestion isn't the worst score of anybody. It's the person who doesn't make the cut, or the worst person who does make the cut +1. So if you shoot if you shoot 10 over, if you shoot 10 over and don't make the cut, then That should be the extra penalty. And then if somebody shoots -5 and he's the last place finisher that does make the cut, you're getting a 15 stroke bonus for not making the cut.
Chalky, you're right. That was the rule. So you would have finished 2 behind me. You still would have beat Chalky though, but it should be the lowest score of the guy that makes the cut +1. That's what we were doing before, +1 to his score.
Yeah.
So in other words,
I mean,
like Mitchell would have been +5.
Yeah, that's fine. I just don't think you should get a guy who only played 36 holes.
Well, that's your poor choice. That's if he shoots 15 over,
then just use his points. It would beat you because he would only have 115. You're still prorating it.
No,
you're still prorating it.
See, you're counting. Look, we'll figure this out for Mitchell. You're counting. You're counting. You're counting shots. You're counting shots. I'm counting to par.
Well, we do shots. We did shots. That you add up any golf thing you do it in total score.
I'm okay doing the guy that makes the cut lowest worst.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
That's how it should be, and that's how it should be.
That's fine. Anyway,
I just don't make sense the other way.
Well, it does make sense because you're rewarding somebody for making a terrible pick by giving them extra points because their guy was really bad and didn't make the cut potentially. If you had 2 that didn't make the cut.
But you're not. The guy who made the cut also might finish worse too. Your guy might have only missed the cut by 1 point by 1.
No, that's the penalty. You could forget it. Okay.
All right, we'll figure it out. So anyway,
we'll do whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna finish last. Doesn't matter.
All right. So actually, Tommy. All right. So I was -49. Tommy's now -47. Chalky was -34. My best player was Clark. Guy that I had that didn't make the cut was Alturas. But I also had Matsuyama, Thigala, and then Homa was terrible. He finished even.
I mean, you also should get a bonus for winning too. Like your guy wins, you should get some sort of award as well.
Yeah, we could add like maybe you get a point. Maybe
right.
Minus a point.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're getting plus a point for the other way, you get minus a point for winning. All right. Regardless, you still won.
I'm not, and I didn't.
No, I'm saying, yeah. So Scheffler was your best pick, -20. And then you had the 2 guys that didn't make the cut, who were JT and Henley. But then you also had Oberg, and then Lowry and McIlroy both played pretty well, -9. Chalky, well, you had Schauffele, so you had a good score there. Your guy that didn't make the cut was Spieth. But your middle guys didn't really. Fleetwood was your best middle guy. Like your other guys kind of.
They fell off on Sunday for the most part.
Yeah. So
Hovland was never there, but the other guys didn't play good Sundays.
So it was fun. I mean, we'll do it again for the Masters.
Yeah, we'll have an extra guy too.
We'll have Kevin. So and the Masters is 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's just good. The Masters is going to be cute, fun because you're getting the live guys back. So you're really going to see. Yeah. You know, last year we were like on the fence of not playing as competitive golf for 4 days, and they all did fairly well, right? If I remember, not all, but like the top guys were the live guys. So
I think there's many guys from live who are live for this tournament.
Man, that what's his face just keeps winning over there. Neiman just keeps winning.
That's my.
Yeah, he's winning every lip
tournament
right now.
Giving away my long shot, but that's my ace in the hole. But,
he's winning every live tournament. It's crazy.
I told Chalky that. I said this guy is on fire, and he's played well at the Masters. So he's down to 25-1. He's no longer a long shot, but I got him at like 60-1. So, I would jump on him if you're looking for a guy like that.
25-1 seems long. That seems crazy he don't have the name, so a guy like Rahm and those guys are always going to come in with better odds. Worse odds, I guess you should say. But
he's a hot name. He might end up closer to 20-1, depending on where you get the line at by the time they tee off.
Yeah, so he's definitely somebody to look at 3 weeks away.
Okay. That sounds about right for the players. Good, fun. It was a fun show. Like to incorporate more golf in there. So it was nice, and we'll be back.
Golf shows are pretty good. Hopefully, everybody agrees.
Yeah. It was. We usually have like Kevin's a nice addition with the golf, with the knowledge. Couple people we had in the past as well. So Definitely a show you want to tune into. I mean, and you can't argue with the picks. I mean, we say what they are. They gave out, some winners and second place. Even
Yeah.
they hit the exacta technically. And speaking of exactas, we're going to move to the fairgrounds for horse racing. Hopefully, it works out better than the last time we did a race, because I think we all scratched our horses. I think all scratched in the big race. Was it?
Well, there's no rain.
Fountain of Youth.
There's no rain for Saturday, so hopefully that'll help us. There are, when we get to the Louisiana Derby, there's a couple of cross centers, and I know one that's definitely out, so we could give that one once we get there.
Okay.
But.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So we're going to start with race 9, which kicks off the pick 4. Is that correct?
Yep.
Right. Yep. That picks off the pick 4, race 9. It's the New Orleans handicap, grade 2 at 1 1/8 miles. Jason, you want to kick it off? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a pretty tough race. I'm going to try to beat that fairground specialist, the 3, Touch Upon the Star. I'll go 2 deep here. My top choice is going to be the 5, Money Supply. Gaffleone for Joe Sharp. If you look, like, the horse has just been on fire since Sharp claimed him, or since the stable, claimed off of Brown. I think the only issue could be that he's kind of a closer, and dirt races I kind of don't like. I don't like picking closers, but he does like the fairgrounds, and like he's definitely in form. So, but my second choice is going to be the 9, Best Actor. He looks like he could be the lone speed in this race. It's Pratt for Cox. You always have to fear Cox in these races. So, I think one of those 2 horses win, and like I said, I'm going to try to beat that 3. He's kind of like a fairground specialist. He's just coming out of restricted races and stuff, and I don't know. Just taking a shot to try to beat him.
Yeah. So I'll agree and disagree. The part I disagree is with the 7 being lone speed. I think the 3 has to fire out of the gate to have any chance. So
yeah.
I
should have said lone speed. I should have said best, like better speed.
Better. Oh, okay. Yeah. I think there's other
speed
speed in the race as well. So I actually could see it being contested up front. I agree that Best Actor is a better speed horse than 3. I didn't like the 3 at all. Like you said, for the same reason, specialists coming to the crappier races. I was 3 deep here. My top pick was Money Supply as well for Joe Sharp. He's performed well on off tracks, but he's also did well since they claimed him on the fast track. And if you look at the PPs, he has a couple of C's with the dark circle, so that generally means a faster pace. And he has some S's, which are slower pace, and he's come from off the pace on all those. So, if there is speed, I think he's going to have the best foot. And if there's, if they for whatever reason aren't going crazy, I still think he has the best close. And if he could stay in touch with the field, I think he can outrun them. Gasoline was one of my other picks. I just see him, maybe staying close to the pace, but off the pace. So maybe he gets a little bit of an early run at the leaders above Money Supply. And like Jason said, dirt races, sometimes it's that first move is enough. And it's Pletcher, it's Johnny V. And then a little bit of a long shot, but he does have IRAD on him, so that could bring him down. His 2 American races, although they were optional claims, they were at Gulfstream. They were both quality races with good buyers. Is the 7, Super Corinto for Ignacio Carreras. So he's 12-1 morning line. Take a little bit of a shot there. I would be surprised if you get 12-1 with IRAD on him. Probably 7 or 8-1 is my guess. But my top pick was Money Supply, and then sprinkling a little gasoline in the 2 and the 7, Super Corinto. Chalky?
My top pick is the 5, Money Supply.
So he's not winning.
I think there's going to be some pace up front, and I think it's going to play out fairly similar to the Mine Shaft, where it wasn't a particularly fast pace in Mine Shaft, but he was sat in the pack, came by and nipped Best Actor at the end. So Money Supply is my top choice, and the other horse I would play would be 9, Best Actor. He, to me, would be the best of the speed. And, the 3 has actually had 2 open company races where he's hit the board, hasn't run well, but he's beaten up on these state breds. So I'm going to go with the class of the speed, which I would say is the 9 as my second choice. But I think it'll set up very well for the 5.
All right. Let's move on to race 10, which is the Muniz Memorial, I guess. I don't know. Grade 2 on the turf. I have not followed it this year, but in the past, the Fairgrounds turf was a disaster. It was some big prices. They were like in the 11 path coming down the stretch and winning. So I haven't followed it. So, disclaimer on the turf there. Maybe you want to do an all on this if you're playing multis. However, looking at the race, I'll go first here. I thought it was kind of chalky. I don't really see any of the crazy prices winning. The 13 at 4-1 has a pretty bad post. I think we compromised. But my top pick was the 4 Beatbox, Rosario and Sherry Duval. Again, you horses that have performed well on Fairgrounds, I tend to lean towards horses 4 for 4 for first or second. Only 1 win, but 3/3 coming off a win in the Grade 2 Fairgrounds. I guess it's called Fairgrounds, Ray Oaks or whatever it is for on the turf. So I got Beatbox as my top pick. He is 6-1, and then Web Slinger is hard to ignore. I mean, it's a top quality horse. It's been good for Cassie for some time now, and then the outside horse in the 13. I'm very busy, which is Chad Brown and Irad. Post could be compromising. I think taking a short price on that horse would be ill-advised, but if you're just giving out winners, I do think she can win, and I think it's one of those 3, but my top pick is Beatbox. Chalky?
My top picks is the 4 Beatbox. DeVoe's been training these horses well, and this horse has won on soft turf at Fairgrounds and has run well on firm turf at Fairgrounds. And at 6-1, I like that price a lot better than the 13, who I think will probably bet down a little bit. The post doesn't concern me as much, maybe because they start like halfway around that turn, and so you're not losing as much ground because it's not a full turn to get into the stretch for that first run. But the 13's a good horse, it seems like, and just lost to a very good horse last time at Gulfstream. And then the other horse, I did have a Cassie, but not the Web Slinger. I would throw in the 2 Strong Quality. Could be lone pace or controlling, and disclaimer, I haven't done any analysis on the Fairgrounds turf either. So I was thinking about that as I was going through it. But if for some reason Johnny V can get him to lope along on the lead, maybe Strong Quality takes him all the way. He just got caught at the end as a favorite in the last race against Beatbox. So I'll make the 2 one of my secondary choices, but my first is the 4.
Yeah, and I've seen these Fairground races in the past years where it's pace, horses set these slow paces. There was one horse, I can't remember his name, that would always do it. We've talked about him on the pod, and just keep going. So it is a quirky turf course. So maybe that's why it's harder to close on at times. Jason?
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 deep here. My top choice is just going to be the 13. I'm very busy. I mean, it's Brown and Irad. Irad on turf. He just wins. He just wins these races. He's going to be coming flying down the stretch in the end. He'll work out a trip. It's Irad on turf. Will he catch my second choice, the 2 Strong Quality? I think he's lone speed. Like you guys tell me who else is going to be speeding this race. I don't see it. There's nobody coming out of like a sprints or anything. To me, looks like lone speed. It's Johnny V for Cassie. He's going to be tough to catch. I do think Irad probably will catch him, but he's going to be loose from the lead. And my third choice is going to be the 4 Beatbox. I like Sherry DeVoe. I mean, she wins, man. She wins races. She's a pretty good turf trainer. She's getting Rosario. Like Tommy said, the horse, has run well in the fairgrounds. So can't leave that horse out. She wins these races, Sherry DeVoe. So 3 deep, 13, 2, and 4.
Okay. All right. Well, we will go to Chalky for this one. It's race 11. It is the Fairground Oaks, so it's basically the Louisiana Derby for the fillies. It is at a mile and a 16th. You got a couple short priced horses here. Chalky, where are you going?
Well, that's appropriate because this is the chalky race for me. I it's 5-6. Maybe the 6 if the 6 is a little bit longer shot to turn the tables, but I don't know if all these horses are going to end up running because at least one's cross centered at Turfway and one is cross centered in another stakes race at Fairgrounds earlier in the day. So you might be down to 6 in this field. But I think it's going to end up being one of those two. I'll go 5, with Pratt and Cox. But if the 6 were to drift up, I think that there shouldn't be that much of a difference, I think. But it's 5-6 and move on.
Yeah, looking through, there's like almost every horse has some sort of cross entry into.
Well, that's the weird thing on this, and I couldn't find this. I don't know if you guys obviously noticed it. So the note where it says like EQH, there's not a track that runs by that. So I don't know what that represents, but anything that's not that, when I looked up an Equibase, I could see the other races that the horse was entered in. But the ones like say like the 6 or whatever, it's only listed in Equibase as one entry. So why it says entered on?
Yeah, I don't. It says 3.
That I don't know.
Nah,
I don't know what that means either.
Yeah, that is weird. I don't know what that means.
Is there a future pool this weekend?
That was last weekend.
That was last weekend. All right, so that's not that. Then yeah, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out because it's on the Derby PPs too. I think.
Oh yeah, I see it now. I didn't
there's
notice
no
that. Yeah.
there's no EQH racetrack, so I don't know what that would be.
Interesting. Jason, where'd you land?
So I'm also going to be too deep, but one horse is different from Chalky's. I mean, you got to use the 5 to Tarifa. She's 2 for 2 at the fairgrounds. She should sit a stalking trip. Her last 3 races have ascending buyers, so she looks like she's improving. She's going to be tough. She should be able to stalk my second choice, which is the 7, Our Pretty Woman for Asmussen and Rosario. Possibly could be on the lead. Might get Brave on the lead. I do think 5 will be right behind her. She has run 2 really good races. My only issue is they've both been on slop, so I don't know if she's just really good on slop or if she's just a good horse and she just happened to run well on slop. So I guess we'll see on Saturday. But I'm willing to take a shot. So top choice will be the 5, and my second choice will be the 7.
Yeah, I'm 3 deep here, but I have leans. So my top pick was the 6 in the intricate, which was the Brendan Walsh horse. Came back after kind of her 2-year-old season, ran a top buyer wise. Kind of ran into a slow pace, came off the pace. It was in slop, still ran an 87 buyer. So I'm willing to forgive that horse. I think she has the best turn of foot late. So I'm going to give her the brief nod. My second choice was actually Our Pretty Woman, the 7 as well. So, possibly could just get loose on the lead. It's Rosario. Rosario has really strong numbers when he's on the lead with the horse. I've seen that Asmussen, Rosario at Fairgrounds combination do damage in many years, and we can name horses that they did well on. So, she ran a fast pace in the last race and still won pretty easily. It wasn't allowance, but again, to Jason's point, they were slop. Always hard to tell. It was a $900K purchase, so obviously the horse had, thought to have some talent. So I'm going to, just use to maybe wire the field. But I do think the 6 is going to catch her. And then the 5, nothing crazy with the Cox horse. Of the 3, I like the least. But, if you're playing multi, it's almost impossible to leave off of your ticket. But again, on the 6 with some 7 and then got to throw in the 5. All right.
So just real quick, you guys mentioned, or Chalky mentioned the future pool last week. So Tarifa and Intricate were in there. So I actually did a double with Forever Young. I don't think these American horses are that good this year for these 3-year-olds. And I think this could be a year a Japanese horse finally wins a Derby. So that horse is supposed to be really good. I guess we'll see. He's running in in Maidan next week for the UAE Derby. But I took some shots with doubles with him winning, with Tarifa, Intricate, and a couple other longer shots for the fillies. So just wanted to throw that out there.
All right. All right, and that brings us to our big race. It's the mile and 3/16 Louisiana Derby. So this was the race that they lengthened, right, a couple years back. Mm-hmm. It was a mile and an eighth now. So is it the longest prep race?
The longest North American prep race, the UAE Derby, I believe, is a mile and a quarter.
Okay. So who won? What? I don't even remember. Epicenter won this race. Was that last year? Year before?
2 years.
No, last year was King Barnes.
Okay, who didn't make any noise in the Derby, but Epicenter turned out to be a good horse. So since the change, it's definitely a key prep for the Derby. Jason, you said you had some information on possibly some cross-center horses that weren't going to run, or were?
Yeah, the one Triple Espresso is out. He's running, I believe, in
Turfway.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Pletchett, Saez, 20-1 morning line. Probably wasn't going to make too much impact going from turf to dirt, but good to know. So it is a field of 11 now, with your favorite is a 3-1 on the outside. So this could be primed for a price. Chalky, what were you thinking on this one?
So my top pick is going to be a price. I don't think you'll get the morning line on it, but I'm going to go back. Pletcher's used this playbook before. I'm going to go with the 3, Antiquarian, on top. It's third race. Now, last year, King Barnes had won his first 2. This one, he finished second in his first race, 1 turn at Gulfstream, and then went 2 turns at Fairgrounds. So he's gone 2 turns before. Paired 7s on the sheets, which is not the fastest numbers, but it puts him right there with anybody else. I don't like this favorite, the 12. So the 3, in looking for a price, the 3 was really the one on top for me. And I look here, $5,000 sire, $250,000 purchase. Again, $250,000, you got a $1.4 million horse in here. But when you see that kind of sire fee and then that kind of price paid at that many times at an auction, it always piques my interest. So for me, it would be the 3 on top. I would also look to use the 2 Hall of Fame, whose fast dirt races were better than his last time out. So maybe he can run back to that last time out number. I also had Cox and Pratt. It's hard to not have them in the mix down at Fairgrounds. So the 5, who's coming out of the Risen Star. And then the 11, Tuscan Gold. So again, this is only 2 starts. Brown's thrown this horse into deep water, but he's not afraid to take these shots, and he really doesn't send horses to those races that just show up. So maybe the horse doesn't run well, but it's not like he's throwing them in here to just pick up a small check. And correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't usually go the Fairgrounds route when he's on the Derby trail. So it's interesting that he would send this horse here, unless he thinks he's completely overmatched in other spots. But for a third start, send him down here. I thought he would be a look with Gaffleone. So that's 3 on top, and then also 2, 5, and 11 in multis.
Okay, Jason.
Yeah, I'm spreading in this race. I'm going to go 4 deep. My top choice is going to be that 11, Tuscan Gold. I like, I use the Theragraph sheets for this race, and I like that he paired 10s. And it looks like he's gonna be ready to move forward. He's going to sit a stalking trip behind that 12. Probably just going to follow him right out of the gate and just kind of stay maybe mid pack, but just kind of get a good jump out there. I like I said, I like pairing the 10s. Chalky's points are valid as far as Brown sending this horse here, out of a maiden race. He must think that the horse has some talent, so he's not afraid to put him in this race. And I like Gaffleone. So And my second choice, not stealing from you, Chalky, but is that 3 Antiquarian. I really, again, used the Theragraph sheets. He's paired sevens. And he might be ready to make a jump off of those sevens. So he did lose. If you look at where who he lost to, the first race he lost to Conquest Warrior, who some think is a legitimate Derby contender. So no shame in losing that race. So I think he's really live. I doubt you'll get 12-1 on him, but very live. I thought the 5 Agate Road is
The 4.
That's a 4.
I'm sorry, the 4. Yeah, the 4. I wrote the wrong number down. Sorry. The 4 Agate Road is progressing nicely on Theragraphs. Came off triple tens and then jumped to a 5. I think he's got some what's the name under him? Forget the word.
Foundation.
But like he's run a lot of races, so he's got
Foundation.
Condition,
yeah.
Foundation under him. And it's IRAD, so gotta throw that 4 in. I didn't know what to do with the 2. I'm going to probably throw him in. He ran huge 2 back, and then he caught slop last race. Maybe he didn't like the slop. Maybe you cross that race out and give him another shot. So I'll probably throw him into the mix too. So those are my 4: 11 to win, 3, 4, and 2 as secondary choices.
Okay, yeah, and I actually had about 4 horses too. I would say, my top pick was a 3. We'll talk about that in a second. The 2 was one of my picks, and just to jump off Jason. The problem with the 2 is you don't know where he is yet, and that's a key to this race. You don't know, is he a speed horse? Is he off the pace horse? He ran close on a pretty good pace in the maiden race and won. He was up close in the slop. He wasn't that close in the first. So you're still not sure. It's Santana, so you don't know what the horse is yet. And to me, I don't see speed and we've seen these Fairground races. Besides the 3, looks like he's gonna go right. You got, is it the 8 that has some quick early pace, but is not a good horse. So is he really gonna fire the lead? I don't know. So I actually had the 3 for similar to Chalky. It's kind of that King Barnes who wired the field last year, who came in with the same sort of PPs. 12-1 is there's no chance. I mean, I think the horse might go 5-1.
I was thinking 6, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So 3 was my top pick, and then no particular order. My other 3 were 2 the Hall of Fame. Surprisingly, the 10 Kenny McPeak's horse, Common Defense. He is a horse that can stay close to the lead. So if it is a race that isn't that hot and he is close, maybe he has first run at them. He was covered up in the last race, so being from the 10 post, see where his positioning is. He did improve with Hernandez. He has improved Theragraphs as well. And then the 11, Tuscan Gold, who was a horse that people talked about. I believe he ran the best race on, what was it, Fountain of Youth Day. He outran the horses that won the Fountain of Youth. I think he had better figures. Now it was earlier in the card, but he was like the horse everybody kind of talked about that day, opposed to the Derby prep races. So for Brown to throw him right into the mix, obviously he thinks a lot of this horse as well. Interesting that he gets Gaffleone instead of Irad, but Irad did ride the Pletcher horse in Tampa, so that could have been they could have already had a contract for he's going to ride him for the next 2-3 races. So
yeah, and that's a Rapoli horse too. So Irad's usually first call on his.
Yeah. So not much there. I wouldn't. That was one horse I was kind of against. I mean, he's pace dependent. It looks like, and that's that Tampa dirt kind of plays turfy at times. So you've seen turf horses transition to that Tampa dirt much better. So if he is a turf horse, you can understand why he ran well, because he did hit a 5 on the Theragraph. Or he just likes dirt. I don't know. It's just weird that they ran him so many times on the turf before firing him onto the dirt. So I was a little bit against that horse, and it's Irad, so I do think he'll get bet, but nothing crazy there. But I was 3, as my top, and then 2, 10, and 11 as my secondary horses. But I do honestly, I would not be surprised to even see a bigger price win. I thought this was a tough race with pretty evenly matched horses and no standouts at all. Anything else before if you guys want to give out a pick, a multi?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you out a pick 4. It's just
yeah.
going to be the
All right,
horses
so
I
yeah,
mentioned.
jump right into it, Jason, and then chalk.
Yeah, I mean, race 9 will be the 5 and 9. Race 10, it'll be 2, 4, and 13. Race 11, just 2 deep, 5 and 7. And then race 12, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 11. And for $1, that should be $48.
Okay, and chalky.
This is not an echo. 5, 9 with.
We got the same horses.
2, 4, 13 with 5, 6. And then in the nightcap, 2, 3, 5, 11. So for $1, that would be 48.
Yeah, so I mean, and I don't have my multi, but there wasn't much. I didn't get much insight that was different than you guys. Besides the McPeak horse, maybe in the last race, it was pretty much all the same. So,
is there any horse you would like take a shot singling?
I mean, just looking at it so far, no. I guess if I counted, no. I mean, maybe you take a shot in the Oaks somewhere because you have 3 horses who are kind of close, odds wise, and you're kind of killing your value by taking them. So maybe just say, you know what, I'll take the shot with the single there, just to kind of cut down or press a horse particularly. But I would have to look at it again a little bit more, see how the track's playing. But no, nobody stood out. I mean, these fairgrounds is, I've always found it to be a pretty tough track personally. So, all right, I think that wraps up our portion of. Oh no, did Chalky wanted to give? Did you want to give a final 4, Chalky?
I mean, I'll go quickly. So I actually should check the score before I start talking about who I think is this team playing. Yeah,
that's cheating.
No, not yet. So
your final 4 should already be in.
No, but I wanted to give a this team, just like outside Sweet 16 team. They haven't started yet, so they tip it. So we're recording this at 8:30. So I think
even if they were losing, you should still give it if that's your.
Well, yeah, but so if they win this,
I'm going to give my tournament winner in
next
3.5 weeks.
Yeah. So Drake has not played yet. They're a 10 seed. They were my underdog Sweet 16 team. My final 4 is UConn, North Carolina, Marquette, and Tennessee. North Carolina, Marquette, championship game. North Carolina wins.
So I guess everybody should get their popcorn ready for this next portion of the show.
So like I said, Meeker has a pre-recorded NCAA bracket segment, whatever you want to call it. It's 22 minutes. Hang in there if you can. I'm sure it'll be worth your while.
Not to be spoiler, his champions did not get knocked out, although one was in a little bit of danger earlier, but our final 14. But
okay. So yeah, that wraps up our portion of episode 98. We'll be back next week when baseball kicks off. So we're working out logistics. Hopefully we'll be taping on Thursday just as the Phillies wrap up game 1, and we'll have some instant reaction to that game, as well as I don't know what else is next week, Florida Derby or something.
Yeah, Florida more Derby. Horses. Going to be a lot of horses coming in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so we're getting heavy on the prep races. Then episode 100 will be in 2 weeks, of course, and then we've talked about when the Masters show. But we're signing off. Stay tuned for Meeker. Have a great night.
Hey everyone, Chris Meeker from the Broad Street Hustle podcast. And today we're taping this video prior to the beginning of the NCAA tournament, which happens to be my second favorite time of the sports year, second only maybe to the NFL playoffs. And since the games are going on in about a half hour, and we usually tape our show at about 8 o'clock, some of these games that we may talk about may already be over. So it's probably best to talk about the tournament before it actually starts so that our conversation doesn't age very poorly. So I kind of broken it down into several different topics that I want to touch on here in this video. So let's start first with what everyone loves to talk about when the selection show comes out, and that's the bubble teams that didn't make it, which I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on because in my opinion, there are 64 teams that make the tournament. If you're on the bubble, you're probably not good enough to even make the tournament, let alone have to spend a bunch of time arguing over what teams didn't make it versus teams that did. But the one thing that I wanted to point out is that this year, I think more than any, there were 21 teams that were at large bids due to not winning their conference tournament. There was a lot of upsets in the conference tournaments. And obviously, as you know, the NCAA puts in the conference champion as an automatic bid. So now you're left with the at large bids for teams that had a pretty good year, but didn't win their conference tournament. So you see teams like Northwestern and Texas A&M getting in the dance because of their strength of schedule, and teams like St. John's and Seton Hall not getting in the dance due to their strength of schedule. So a lot of teams get pushed out, which I understand this is the way it works in the NCAA. But it should end up with the best 64 teams making it, or at least the remaining 40 something teams making it that do not win their conference tournament. So we're going to break it down into a couple of different sections here. And we're going to start with the players that I think we need to watch here in this tournament. And we're going to start with Zach Edey. So last year, Purdue had an early exit in the NCAA. Edey is going to win, National Player of the Year, which isn't a surprise. And I think if there's any player in this tournament that has the most pressure to perform, it's him. He didn't really have much of a chance to perform in last year's tournament due to their, I think, first round loss last year. So with National Player of the Year honors, I mean, we'll be watching Zach Edey and he's hoping that Purdue makes a big run here in the tournament. I think he's got the most pressure of any player. Caleb Love. So this is a player to watch as well. Caleb Love, if you remember, just a few years ago when North Carolina played Kansas in the NCAA championship, Caleb Love was a member of UNC. Now he's a member of Arizona, transferred from UNC to Arizona, apparently because he thought Arizona's style fit his style. So I'm interested to see if this all works out, because there is a good chance that Arizona would play North Carolina in a Final Four game. If you like Arizona to make the Final Four, you might see the Caleb Love, bowl in that particular game. Other player to watch, Dalton Knecht from Tennessee, who was in the running for National Player of the Year. And if Tennessee goes far in this tournament, I think it's going to be on the heels of Dalton Knecht's high scoring output, and he'll drive them to a deep run if we feel that Tennessee is going to make a deep run. Tyler Kolek, which is a Marquette's guard, is a trendy pick in the tournament this year, but his health has been a big concern, and he missed the last 4 games of the season. So if he's not healthy, I don't see Marquette going very far. But if he's healthy and he's played like he has for most of the season, they could. Or, like I said, they can go out quickly if he's got some lingering problems with his injury. And the last player I think we should talk about is Terrence Shannon from Illinois. I don't know if he leads the NCAA in scoring. I know he leads the Big Ten in scoring, but he has a trial coming up for rape, kind of a serious issue in May, but he was given or granted an injunction by the court to be able to play these games. And last 4 games, which mainly were the Big Ten tournament, he scored 32 points per game in those particular games. So I kind of like Illinois, which we'll find out a little bit later on in this video. But this is a pretty serious situation. And I don't think that they would have made the run that they're capable of if he wasn't given the access of being able to play in these tournament games. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the blue bloods and what I think, where I think some of these teams are headed here in the tournament. North Carolina, we'll start with them. I think they're a very deep team and experienced, and I think they can certainly make a big run. I mean, there's still players on this team that I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they've been on the team for 5-6 years. Like Baycott and what's the other guy's name? TJ something is not coming to mind. Yeah, I should look that up just to make sure I don't sound like an idiot. But they won, or they got to the national championship 2 years ago, and they still have a few starters on that team. And Caleb Love would have been another starter had he not transferred to Arizona. But I think, North Carolina is in a pretty good situation with their seeding. Of course, they're a 1 seed, but they're in their particular bracket. I think they have an easier path than some of the other 1 seeds. So I think that they're going to make a deep run here in this tournament. Duke. Well, you see the hat that I'm wearing, and everyone probably knows I'm a Duke fan. Not going to happen this year for the Dukies. I think they just never really got to a point this season, and I've watched a lot of Duke games where they just put it all together. They have talent. And, all of these blue blood teams have talent because, they get the best recruits, but they're not really cohesive. They don't have that killer on the court like previous Duke teams where you're really fearing that one guy to beat you. I mean, there's some good players on this team. Kyle Filipowski, probably the best of all of them. But he's not a guy that can take over a game. And defensively, they get a little sleepy sometimes. And this is not to say that I don't think John Shire is a good coach, but if Coach K was coaching this particular team, I think that they would be a better team, mainly because Coach K, really does push defense, and this team has had a lot of defensive woes over the season. They've had some injuries, nothing that was really debilitating, but I just don't see Duke going too far in this tournament. Kentucky. Coach Cal has not been, a very big success in the last however many years of the tournament. And I can see Kentucky getting picked off a little bit early in the tournament as well. Kansas, who, won the NCAA 2 years ago, obviously has a Hall of Fame coach in Bill Self. But their best player got injured in McCullough, and that could be an early upset. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute, because I think that Kansas should be on upset alert. They're not a very deep team either. And, when teams get upset in the tournament that are 1, 2, 3 seeds, it's usually because they're playing a team that gets into the tournament because they've either won their conference, they're a mid-major team. And when they get there, the reason why they're good is because they've played together for an extended period of time. And we'll get into talking a little bit about that here in a second when it comes to Kansas. So that's when, a lot of these teams get picked off, or how they get picked off is you have a major injury like this, or you're not very deep and you depend mainly on your starters. And if you lose one, then you can get picked off pretty early. UConn, the defending national champs. I think they're definitely poised to make another run at it this year. They're deep. They're well coached. Brought back a bunch of starters from last year. So I'm not going to pick them to win the tournament, as you'll see, because I think it's difficult to go back to back. But I would not be surprised, if they got there. Certainly not surprised if they get to the Final Four. So talk a little bit about that a little bit later on here. We're going to move on to some other things. The coaches who I think have the most pressure on them to make a deep run in the NCAA. First one for me is Kelvin Sampson. He's been knocking on the door for the last few years and just hasn't really gotten to the finish line. But you wonder with Houston's style of play if it doesn't provide like enough firepower for a 6 or 7 win tournament, because that's how many games you have to win it all. They're always going to be a very good defensive team, and defensive teams do usually do well in the tournament, as we saw with San Diego State. But sometimes it takes you to have one of those guys that get hot at the right time. And I don't think Houston has that kind of firepower, to get to the finish line. So I'm not going to pick them to get to the finals. But as you'll see, I may pick them to get a little far. But I think Kelvin Sampson has a little bit of pressure on him. Tommy Lloyd, Arizona's coach, just got his big extension. So he's entrenched there in Arizona for the next 5 or 6 years. And his team is expected to get far this year. And if they do go out early, Arizona may be second guessing their decision to extend his contract. They haven't been as good a team in the tournament as they were with Sean Miller. And, we'll see how well they fare because, again, I think that Arizona has a pretty nice path to the finish line here in their bracket as well. And they're going to be expected to make a deep run. Rick Barnes from Tennessee hasn't been to the Final Four in quite a long time. I think we're going on 20 years. He's also 69 years old now. So he may be facing, the curtain call on his career coming here soon. And his team is stacked. And, they're expected to make a big run in this tournament as well. So I think he's got some pressure on him because I think, the curtain is kind of closing on his career here at Tennessee. This might be, if not the best, but one of the best Tennessee teams that he's ever had in the tournament. So I think he's got some pressure on him because they are a pretty good team. I want to mention, but not mention Mark Few because this is really not one of those years that Gonzaga has the players that they've had in the past to make a deep run. I think they're more in a rebuilding type year. But again, this is a coach that I don't know how long he's been at Gonzaga. It's been forever, but has never really gotten to the finish line either. So I think there's a little pressure on him to at least make a showing in the tournament. Maybe get to the Sweet 16. But I wouldn't say it's like live or die on Mark Few this year. Okay, now let's get to some of the good stuff, and that's the upsets. Usually we see at least one or two every tournament, 11 or 12 seed, get an upset in the first round. And a lot of the bigger upsets actually come in round two. And you see a lot of 8 or 9 seeds take out a 1 seed pretty early in the tournament. So the upsets that I'm looking at here in the first round is Samford over Kansas. And I think Kansas, like I mentioned earlier, is in trouble here. They lost their best player. And they play a team that averages 87 points per game and run a different player out there, like literally every 10 minutes. So they do a lot of substitutions. They do a lot of their deep team. Let's put it that way. So I think that this is going to give Kansas a hard time because Kansas really relies mainly on their starters. They're not a very deep team. So if they have to go into their bench, especially to match up with just being fresh against a team like Samford, they could lose this game. And I think I'm going to pick Samford to win a first round game against Kansas in an upset. The other is aforementioned Gonzaga, and they're playing McNeese. Like I was saying, like Gonzaga is more on a rebuilding year. And I think they're right to be picked off pretty early in this tournament by a team that can really light it up in McNeese, who has won 11 straight games. James Madison over Wisconsin. Wisconsin got in with their nice showing, in the Big Ten tournament. They got to the Big Ten final against Illinois, and they ended up with a 5 seed, which I thought was really high for a Wisconsin team. But at the same time, they're not really getting any favors from the committee because they have a first round game against James Madison, which has the Sun Belt Player of the Year on their team. They're 31-3. They have a lot of tournament experience as well, as we've seen in the past. So they're not quite one of those Cinderella teams where you say, well, this would be a huge upset if a team like James Madison takes out Wisconsin. So I can see that happening for sure. If we move on to the second round, like I said earlier, we've seen a lot of 8-9s defeat a 1 in recent years. So if I was picking a possibility here, I'm watching Utah State over Purdue. I'm not going to say that it's going to happen because I'm not in love with many of the 8-9s versus the 1s, assuming that the 1s get past their first game. But Purdue, I think of all the 1s as a team that I can see getting picked off, and we saw that last year. So Utah State is a pretty good team, and that's going to be a tough game for Purdue in round 2. All right, so let's talk about the teams that I expect to make a deep run who are not number 1 seeds. And number 1 is Creighton. Creighton has, if you follow the tournament, Creighton is they're always in the tournament. They always give whoever they're playing a tough game. And this year is probably the best Creighton team that's been in the tournament, highest seeded Creighton team in the tournament that we've seen. They're a 3 seed this year, and I can see them making a really deep run. They have a lot of good 3-point shooters in this team, and that's their strength. And we've seen in the past how 3-point shooters can make the difference between, winning the tournament, or if you're off, going out in a jiffy. So I can see Creighton making a deep run. Illinois, kind of talked about them a minute ago, but they are the Big Ten tournament champs. They light it up too. They're averaging over 85 points a game, I believe, this year. So I can see them making a good big run here. And they're a they're a 2 or a 3 seed. So they're not a 1 seed. Florida, who I can see maybe not making like the Elite 8, but definitely getting to the Sweet 16 because they have Kentucky in their path. And that's a team that I can see them losing to. Kentucky losing to Florida. Teams that I don't think are going to make a deep run, and that's Duke, as I just mentioned. I think Duke will get by their first, get past Vermont. They'll get past the first game, but I can see them losing possibly in the field of 32. So I don't know that Duke will make a Sweet 16 this year. Kansas, as I mentioned earlier, I think that this injury to McCullough is really going to hurt them, and I think that they're going to be out early. And Kentucky, like I just mentioned, I think that they might not make the Sweet 16 as well. But these are teams that are expected to make the Sweet 16. So if they're out early, it would be an upset. All right, let's go to my Final Four. My Final Four are Houston, Creighton, Illinois, and North Carolina. And I'm going to save my championship pick until we get there, if I have any of these teams left over once we get to the Final Four. But yeah, I mean, all different reasons. I think, with respect to where they're seated, who they're going to have to play along the way, their experience, and, it's just one of those years that I think it's really wide open. And I know that we say that a lot, but you could talk to 10 different people that, give you 10 different Final Four teams. I don't think there is a surefire answer here. And I toyed with, of course, UConn. I mean, it would be stupid for me to not think that UConn can make the Final Four this year. But I just think it's tough to go back to back, and they're going to face Illinois at some point in that tournament. And that's going to be a game I will definitely watch because it's going to be real high scoring, high flying game. As we talk about betting with respect to the tournament, I heard somebody say the other day, which I thought was pretty funny. Vegas loves the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament because, first of all, the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament are bet, like the amount of money that they bring in is more than the Super Bowl. It's the most bet sporting event basically in the country. So why do they love it? Because, people tend to want to bet. There's so many games. People tend to want to bet every game, and they don't really have any kind of formula to do it. They go to the casinos, or at least in Vegas, go to the casinos and drink their beer with their buddies, sit in front of the TVs and watch the games, and they just want something to root for. And that's the reason why Vegas loves the tournament. But if you want to have a strategy, and I don't know that this is the best strategy, because there are a lot of upsets in the first 1 or 2 rounds of the tournament, I think that the best strategy would be to bet money line dogs that you think really have a good shot at winning the game, and back it up with taking those same dogs with points. Because with the money line, obviously you get better odds. And I'm not going to sit there and bet every single dog in the first round, but I might pick out 5 or 6 different games that I think the dog actually has a shot at winning the game, and then certainly has a shot of covering the points. So, historical data says that if you and not the longest dogs, not the 16s and the 15s, which here and there will happen. It's very rare, but it does. But anything on the 12, 11, 10 line, like those dogs are the best dogs to bet in the NCAA tournament because a lot of times teams win on the 12, 11, 10 line. And more often than not, I want to say it was 60+% they cover in the first round. And if they make it to the second round, even the second round. So we talked about some of the dogs that I kind of like going into this tournament. I'll add a few more other than Sanford and James Madison. I do like Drake in the first round. I would take them with the points. I do like NC State in the first round. They're coming off of a ACC tournament championship. So they're hot. I like McNeese, as we had mentioned earlier. And I would take all those teams with the points in the first round. I would not sit there and bet every single game. At least, I understand that you want to be able to root for one team in every single game, but I don't really think that's a smart move. Pick and choose the dogs that you like the most, and hopefully you're cashing your tickets at the end of the day. All right, so that's my synopsis of the NCAA tournament here in 2024. See you guys next week on Broad Street Hustle.